This is the softest and fluffiest vanilla cake, covered in vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream. It's easy to make, so don't be scared away by the layers. Welcome to Recipes by Karina, where I share with you how to make classic and simply delicious recipes. Make sure to subscribe or follow my page for a new recipe each week. To make this cake, we're going to be using the reverse creaming method, which is a technique that leads to finer, silkier and softer cakes that bake more evenly. It's great for a delicate flavour like vanilla. This just means we're mixing the butter in with the dry ingredients rather than the traditional method of creaming butter and sugar together. In the bowl of your stand mixer, or a larger bowl if you're using a hand mixer, measure out 2 cups or 250 grams of standard or all-purpose flour. You can use cake flour for this recipe. It'll be even more delicate, but normal flour works perfectly well. You'll notice I give the recipe amounts in metric and imperial, cups, grams and ounces, so no matter where you live in the world, you should find this recipe easy enough to follow. If you'd like the full recipe for this vanilla cake, it will be on my website, as well as the full measurements listed in the description box below. To the flour, measure out 2/3 of a cup of white sugar. You can make this recipe by hand, but it's much easier with a hand mixer or a stand mixer. If you enjoy baking, I would definitely recommend getting a hand mixer. They're not too expensive and you'll definitely need it if you want to make the Swiss meringue buttercream. To make our cake super light and airy, we'll need some baking powder as well as baking soda to provide some lift. You can't substitute one for the other here, so make sure you have both, as they are different ingredients that provide different results. You'll need 1 teaspoon of baking powder and half a teaspoon of baking soda. Add these both to the bowl with the flour and sugar. Finally, you'll need a pinch of salt. Using your stand mixer or hand mixer on low speed, mix the ingredients together for a few seconds or so until they're well combined. With the mixer running on low speed, or while you're still holding the hand mixer, start to add your butter. You'll need 1 cup, 2 sticks or 225 grams of butter for this recipe. Make sure it's completely at room temperature here. I'll usually leave mine out of the fridge from the night before. It's easiest to have it cut into large pieces, so you can easily add one piece after the other. This is kind of a similar technique here as if you were to be making pastry. Ideally you want the mixture to start to resemble coarse sand. The reverse creaming method works by coating all the little granules of flour in butter, sort of by waterproofing it or providing a protective barrier. When you add the wet ingredients, they aren't able to hydrate the flour, which in turn doesn't allow it to produce gluten, and gluten is what leads to a chewier and more dense goods like bread. If you were to taste a creamed and reverse cream cake side by side, the flavour would be the same, but the structure and texture are what's different. Both have their pros and cons, but for vanilla layer cake, reversed is definitely the preference. As you can see here, you're trying to get it to about this point. A little finer would be okay. There are still a few bits of butter, but around this kind of texture will work perfectly. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite flavour of cake is. I have so many different recipes now of cakes. I have a playlist linked below if you're looking for some inspiration. Mine would probably be carrot cake or banana cake. I don't think you can ever go past a good cream cheese icing or frosting. In a smaller bowl, we're going to combine the wet ingredients for the vanilla cake. We'll need 3 good quality room temp eggs. If you store them in the fridge, just remove them about 30 minutes to an hour before you start baking. Or if you've forgotten to do that, you can sit them in warm water for 5 to 10 minutes. Crack each one into the bowl, followed by 2/3 of a cup of sugar. We added sugar earlier with the flour, but adding it all in the beginning would have been too much, causing it to cream a little with the butter. We'll also need half a cup of milk and half a cup of sour cream. The sour cream adds moisture as well as a little tang to the cake. It's what's going to activate the baking soda we added to the dry ingredients earlier. If you don't have sour cream, you can also substitute with natural unsweetened yogurt or Greek yogurt, or failing that, you can use a cup of milk instead, but make sure to use all baking powder instead of the baking soda, as the cake will have a bitter flavour. Lastly, we'll need 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I like the one with beans in it, so you get those running through the cake. Since it's the only flavour we're using here, make sure yours is the best quality you can find. Use a whisk to mix the wet ingredients together, combining them well, breaking up the eggs. Pour half of the wet ingredients into the bowl with the dry ingredients and mix on low speed until just about fully combined. Follow with the second half and mix the cake batter together on low to medium speed for about a minute or so. We don't have to be as careful here with over mixing, as doing the reverse creaming method we haven't allowed much gluten to form. Mixing now, we're actually trying to develop the smallest amount of gluten just so the cake holds together well, but still not the same as if we were doing the traditional creaming method. Pour the cake batter into 3 lined and greased 6-inch or 15cm cake pans. Alternatively, you can use 2 8-inch or 20cm cake pans instead and have a 2-layer cake. Bake in a 180°C or 350°F oven for 25 to 30 minutes, or until the centre of the cake springs back when lightly pressed. Leave to cool completely before decorating. To decorate the cake, there are a couple of different options you can choose from. There's traditional buttercream, which is butter and powdered sugar whipped together, or Swiss meringue buttercream. Swiss meringue buttercream can take a little longer to make, but it has a much silkier texture and isn't as sweet. I'll have the full recipe for both listed below, as well as the videos, which are very informative if you haven't made it before. Today I'm making the vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream, which uses a sweetened whipped meringue that butter is creamed into. It's my favourite for this type of cake, as you want it between the layers of cake as well as on the outside, and traditional buttercream can sometimes be too sweet and overpowering for that. Make sure your cakes have completely cooled to room temperature before you start to decorate them. I've used a serrated knife and levelled off the tops just so they're perfectly flat, but you'll find that these cakes don't form too much of a dome, so you can easily skip this step if you want to. Start with one of your cakes and add about 1/3 of a cup of the buttercream. Using an offset spatula, spread it as evenly as you can over the cake. If you don't have an offset spatula, you can use a knife, spoon or rubber spatula, but this tool makes such easy work of it. I'll have the one I'm using linked below, it's my favourite. Follow with the second cake, pressing it down evenly and top with another 1/3 cup of Swiss meringue buttercream. Once it's smoothed out, finally follow up with the third cake, turning it upside down so you get the perfectly flat bottom as the top of your cake. If you made this using 2 8-inch or 20cm cakes instead, I would recommend using over half a cup of buttercream between the 2 layers. Add a big scoop of buttercream to the top of the cake and cover it all in a thin layer. This is the crumb coat. We'll add more later on, but this just keeps all the crumbs from the cake contained, so when you're smoothing over the final layer, you don't get bits of cake everywhere. Place it into the fridge for at least 30 minutes to chill and set. And finally, follow up with the final coat. If you're way better than me at this, you can smooth it flat, but I find that's just too much work, so I go for more swirls as the finished look. Before serving, place the cake in the fridge for another 30 minutes just to let the Swiss meringue buttercream set. Slice and enjoy. This cake is simple, being just vanilla flavoured, but so delicious. I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. If you make any of my recipes, please send me a photo of your recreation. I love receiving them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.